Hey guys, what's up? I'm here with a review of the new one from Massacre Video, but I'll put a link in the description to where you can pre-order the Blu-ray release of this movie. And I'll say right now, before I even start the review, pre-order it, because this movie's pretty fucking just fun. So the movie I'm talking about is one that Massacre is going to be releasing here soon, I think. I think it might even already be out. I can't be too sure about that. But it is a little film by the name of Hack-O-Lantern from 1988. I've known of this film for a very long time. I remember seeing it in the video store when I was pretty young. This is another one of those movies similar to Terror Toons, The Ice Cream Man, Dead and Breakfast, Eat Me, or not Eat Me, but Bite Me. Similar to those films, how I used to see them in video stores all the time when I was real young, and I never really sat back and kind of, not sat back and watched them, but never really rented them. Essentially, Hack-O-Lantern, also known as Death Mask and Halloween Night, is a Halloween slasher film about this kindly old man who is a grandfather, and like he loves his grandkids and everything, specifically his one grandkid, Tommy. And he ends up, and it turns out he's actually the leader of a local satanic cult who sacrifices people on Halloween night. Yeah, that takes quite a turn, doesn't it? The film begins with like credits and kid being visited by his grandfather. This is Tommy, and the actor who is the grandfather gives this overly creepy performance that is like so overly creepy, very similar to, I would say, Fuad Ramses in Blood Feast. How his performance is so overly creepy, it bounces off the wall and becomes hilarious, and it's the same kind of thing here. He gives the kid a pumpkin and then just kind of leaves. And he tries to carve the pumpkin against his mother's advice and ends up cutting himself. And then when she hears he got the pumpkin from his grandfather, she fucking throws an absolute shit fit, starts screaming and overreacting, very similar to the mother in Elves. I'm making a lot of fucking connections to other movies I really enjoy here. But she overreacts and fucking smashes the pumpkin right in front of the kid, and then the father in the family is like, oh, well, I'm gonna go have a talk to him. There's no way I'm gonna let him have a relationship with his grandfather at all. That's wrong. Well, no, it's actually because I guess they just don't like the grandfather for some reason. It's never really explained why exactly, but that's kind of the charm of the film. So he goes straight to the grandfather's house, finds them performing a satanic ritual, and the grandfather just straight up fucking kills the father and burns his corpse, and then the movie skips ahead 13 years later. I'm guessing Tommy was probably about 6 or 7, so this puts him at about 22, anywhere from 18 to 20. 18 to his early 20s, age-wise. And the actor they got to be Tommy in his teen years looks like he's in his fucking 30s. That's the point I stopped taking notes because I'm really lazy, but I will bring up a couple of interesting things that happened. There's a scene where Tommy's trying to drown out as a teenager, he's trying to drown out his mother, like, annoying him, so he listens to some metal music on his fucking Walkman, and suddenly he's having a dream about like being in a band and they're performing, and then suddenly there's like a 6-armed demon chick who like shows up and kills all the band members and him, and it's like something out of a fucking 80s metal music video. Essentially what we have with this film is a forgotten Halloween horror film because of the high influx of Halloween themed horror films released after the wake of of John Carpenter's classic Halloween. But in all honesty, I enjoyed the hell out of this movie. I'm not gonna lie. From the over-the-top cheesy acting and the writing to the bloody kills and kind of heavy metal aesthetic of the film, I did not expect it to be like a heavy metal kind of slasher, but it was, and I definitely dig that. it's honestly really fun if you're into like kind of 80s metal and or rock kind of horror films. So as previously mentioned, the acting in the film is really over the top. Honestly, it's bad, but I think it's entertaining. I found the acting, the bad acting, to be actually pretty entertaining. The writing is also pretty cheesy, with the kind of characters all being written in a very weird way, to where they all just want to kind of goof off, and they're cracking jokes and pulling pranks on each other. And when I say cracking jokes, I mean like terrible fucking jokes about, like, there's a scene where a character who is a fucking deputy for the sheriff's office, the sheriff is telling him about how people are robbing graves, and he says, "Oh, it's a grave situation, isn't it?" And it's just like, wow, did it take you all day to come up with that fucking joke? I swear. Also, characters doing just weird, random shit half the time. From a technical standpoint, everything technical, lighting, camera work, sound mix, cinematography, fucking catering on the set, I guess. All that's well done. All that's well done, and the music is fairly good. It's got some kind of 80s metal and or rock in there, and some cliche sounding slasher film music, which I'm not going to be upset about, because because after seeing a movie, after seeing a slasher film somewhat recently called, I think it's called The Offering, which is a beat-for-beat ripoff of Halloween, and the music is like near lawsuit level. I'm completely okay with some cliche-sounding slasher music that doesn't sound like fucking Halloween. The effects in the film range from kind of cheesy to fairly well done. It's mostly just kind of blood splatter and a couple like wounds here and there. It's not ultra violent, but with how kind of weird the movie is overall, the characters doing weird shit, and just everything being, I hate to say it again, but weird. It doesn't really need a high level of gore, because it's not really that boring at all. I mean, there are a couple moments where it's a little slow, but I would never say there's a moment where the film is actually boring. And that's another thing I have to say. The pacing in this movie is actually pretty well done. There's a nice little, there's some nice space between killings that, unlike some slasher films where the space between killings is like just fucking boring, here it's interesting, because of how weird the characters are, especially the grandfather character. He is a fucking nut. On the gore meter from 1 to 10, 1 being something like Nosferatu, and 10 being something like Brain Dead, the film probably sits at a 4 or 5. It really is not that gory at all. I would say there's like one major scene that I would say I would call gory. The rest of the kills I would just say are fairly bloody. There's some blood splatter, some blood on clothing, blood on people. But other than that, it's fairly tame, I would say, by today's standards. I really enjoyed this film. I really enjoyed the film overall. It's just like a dumb kind of weird. I really hate using the word weird multiple times, because if you use it so much, it kind of loses its meaning. But that's the word I look for. It's a kind of I guess you could use strange. It's a strange, cheesy, dumb slasher film from the late 80s. And I would say if you like movies like Demons, like Demons films, Demons 1 and 2, Slumber Party Massacre 2 specifically, where it had the killer who was just like a guy in a leather jacket with a chainsaw that has a drill, with a guitar that has a drill on it. Pledge Night, which features an entire soundtrack from Anthrax. TerrorVision, which is just such an overly 80s movie that it kind of falls under rock horror. And, of course, how can I forget Rocktober Blood. If you're a fan of any of those movies, I would say give this one a shot. I think you might get a kick out of it. I'm going to go ahead and give this one a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Links in the description below to pre-order the Blu-ray. I would totally pre-order the Blu-ray, but I'm kind of broke at the moment. But I will be picking up the Blu-ray eventually. It is actually a limited edition, so grab it while you can. Anyway, guys, this is Biscuit Boo Horror Reviews, signing off. Peace.